Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review, and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. Today we have a discussion, but it's not really around books at all. It's around my goals for 2024. We're going to talk about goals for my reading as the majority of this, but we're also going to talk about my goals for how I want to improve the channel and maybe some stuff that you're going to see throughout the year. So, let's get straight into things and talk about the goal that probably a lot of people are interested in, which is that I am going to read 60 books. Last year I read 52 books. I think a couple of those might have been graphic novels and a few were novellas. But I'm going to imagine that I kind of keep the same sort of ratio this year and read a few graphic novels, read a few novellas as they come up in things like the Sun Eater series, for example. But I think that the 60 books is pretty achievable. I tend to schedule into my TBRs 6 books a month. And obviously some months I vastly overshoot 6. Like in November I read like 13 books or something mad like that. But also there are months where I will undershoot, so I feel like 60 is pretty good because that basically gives me 2 months worth of undershooting. So I've got 2 months to catch up if I want to. So I think, yeah, so I'm scheduling 72 books this year, but planning to read 60. I think that's pretty doable, especially because, like I was saying, last year I read 52, and there were multiple months that I only read 1 or 2 books before I started the channel. Now I started the channel, I'm reading a lot more. Also, I will count it if I finish volume 1 of the Wheel of Time, of the Wandering Inn. So if I finish volume 1 of Wandering Inn, that's gonna go on as a book, even though I've read, like 25 chapters in 2023, but we won't talk about that because I also read most of Red Rising in 2023. Speaking of Red Rising, there's something else that I really want to do on the channel, which is to diversify my reading. So I have always thought of myself as, or talked about myself. If somebody says, "What do you read?" I say that I read fantasy and science fiction. But last year, if you don't count the books that I read by Sanderson in his Skyward series, of which there were like 7 if you include novellas as books, which we're doing that. So if you don't include the Skyward books, I think I only read like 3 or 4 sci-fi books out of 50. So this year I've made a proper effort to add sci-fi to every single month of my TBR. So I read Red Rising already. I'm now reading Empire of Silence by Christopher Rocchio, which is the first book in the Sun Eater series. And I'm going to continue both of those. So I've read like 10 chapters of Sun Eater so far, and I can already tell that I'm going to like it and I'm going to want to continue. Unless it absolutely shits the bed at the end. And having seen all the thumbnails from people about Sun Eater, but not watched any of the videos because I don't want to cloud my judgment on this first book, I'm pretty certain I'm going to like it. So, especially, Petrick has been raving about it, and Petrick and I have very similar reading taste. So, I'm going to be reading Sun Eater, I'm going to be reading Red Rising. Also in January, I've got in Return of the Griffin, which is from the Hybrid Helix. I'm hoping to read all of the Hybrid Helix, like 1 per month over the next few months. So in fact, I'll almost be reading more sci-fi than fantasy for the first few months of the year, because I have 3 sci-fi series lined up and only 2, maybe 3 fantasy series. I'm trying to... I don't want sci-fi to overwhelm, because this is still, it's a fantasy and sci-fi channel, so I don't want it to be just both. I don't want it to be just sci-fi or just fantasy, but I would like to diversify my reading. If you have any recommendations for sci-fi standalones, I'd really, really be excited to hear those, because all of my sci-fi stuff that I'm interested in is series. And one of the big reasons that I want to read more sci-fi is because when I was making my end of the year content, I was thinking to myself how there's probably a lot of people who aren't big fantasy heads but are big sci-fi fans, or who aren't big sci-fi fans but are big fantasy fans. And my thought was that at the end of the year, what I'm going to try and do is put together a top 10 of all books that I read, but also top 5 sci-fi and top 5 fantasy that I read. So, as if I'm going to do the same sort of rule, that I don't want to have multiple books from the same series in my lists, then I'm going to need to read more than just two or three sci-fi series. So sci-fi standalones is the thing I'm looking for and I want recommendations for. So please, if you've got those, I did see somebody talking about a sci-fi duology that was really interesting. It's got The Monk and the Robot, I think. I'll have to look that one up. A Psalm for the Wild Built, I think maybe might have been the second book, or the name of the series. We'll find out. But there's some stuff there. I'm also hoping to, probably not in the first half or first quarter, but I'm hoping to read the Area X trilogy by Jeff Vandermeer. I read some of Annihilation when the movie came out, and I was kind of really I love the movie so much. I was like, I want to read the book just to see what the difference is. And then I just, before 2021, I just couldn't finish books. I would start loads of books and love reading them, but never finish them. So now I'm finishing, 50 books in a year. I think it's time to go back to the stuff that I loved but didn't finish, which is kind of what I'm doing with Red Rising, where I did finish Red Rising, but I didn't finish Golden Sun. So yeah, Area X by Jeff Vandermeer, really excited to read those. I have seen the most pretty looking omnibus edition of those books, and I'm really, really tempted to pick it up. But I'm going to hold off because I don't love omnibus editions. I love the way this book looks, but as a person, I want to hold 3 separate books. I want to have 3 books. So I know it's silly, but I don't know if I'm going to buy that edition. But you know what? This is a very long point about one specific set of books. So yeah, please recommend me sci-fi duologies, standalones, short trilogies, and by short I mean if you look at the Red Rising books, they're you could read a Red Rising book in 2-3 days. And that's the sort of trilogy I'm looking for. Maybe one month I'll just binge a whole trilogy. That could be fun. Let's talk about my third goal for 2024. I have 4. This is the last one that is about my reading. Now, this one is one that has been kind of brought on by my Self-Pub September experiment. So don't know if I will be doing Self-Pub September again this year, because I'm also trying to read more new releases. And actually, I have 5 goals, because one of them is read more new releases. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I want to read more self-pub books. I want to read 1 self-pub book a month. And that's kind of the same for sci-fi, is that I want to read more sci-fi. I want to read at least 1 per month. But at the moment, I'm hitting way above that. So so in an ideal world, I think it'd be really cool if I could do split my reading into thirds. So like I was saying, I read roughly 6 books a month. Let's say if I did 2 trad fantasy, 2 trad sci-fi, and then 1 indie published sci-fi and fantasy, that would be the perfect ideal reading month, I think, for me. So I just really want to read more indie stuff. I would like to be able to, again, at the end of the year, be able to do a top indie published list that I read that year. I think it's really important to highlight and showcase the self-pub authors and the self-pub scene. Talking to Andrew in our interview, really impressed upon me again, as well as, talking to people like Philip Chase and JCM Byrne, whose books that I've read. I think that the independent authors are incredibly supportive of Booktube, and as a small Booktube channel, that support is really, really meaningful, and so I would like to also support them as authors. And on top of that, it's a really nice. I don't know about you guys, but I feel nice giving my money to the smaller authors who are trying to bust in their gut to do something independently without the backing of these big publishers. So I don't know. I feel like overall there's just a lot of good there. And I think also that I would like to do more when it comes to surfacing the hidden gems of self-pub. Everybody talks about Sword of Kaigen. Everybody talks about Bound and the Broken. But I really want to really mine, Kindle Unlimited and places like that for the self-pub that people aren't talking about. So that's going to be kind of my mission for this year, is to find self-pub books that are really good, but are not kind of the big names. I might fail in this mission, but I definitely want to do that. I've got a few self-pub books already lined up. So I have 2 this month, which is Return of the Griffin, as already discussed, but also Prophet of Idan, which is actually should be coming in the post today. So if you hear the doorbell, let me know. Now, so yeah, I've got those 2 lined up. That's just for January. So what I wanted to do as well is to try and read a lot of self-pub at the beginning of the year, so that so that I can still have on average of 1 a month if later in the year my schedule gets completely upended. I just finished reading Either World by Robert Jordan, the first book in the Wheel of Time, and if there is a thought between me and Matt, who I'm reading it with, that we want to speed up, for example, when it comes to the slog, and we want to try and read 2 books in a month or something like that, then I would like the space to do that. So as with the sci-fi goal, I'm front loading the year so that I can do on average, I've read 1 a month. And we'll come back to these goals at the end of the year in December and see how well I've done. I think that'd be really interesting. Next goal. So I said I had 4 goals. I actually have 5. 4 of them are around my reading. So my 4th goal is that I would like to read more new releases. So I contributed to Matt's Fantasy Book Review's Best Book of 2023 video. So what he did was he asked 70 of us booktubers what our favourite book that came out in 2023 was. And so for me, that was Of War and Ruin, because it's one of my favourite books of all time. And he's just reviewed that book on his channel, actually, and he's loved it. So I'm really glad that he's enjoyed that. It was only me and Mike's Book Reviews who picked Of War and Ruin, which is mad, because I do genuinely feel it was beyond incredible. One of the best books. But I guess maybe some people read the Arc in 2022 and it did release in January, and you see this with Game of the Year awards, that people kind of forget the stuff that happened at the beginning of the year. Anyway, I would like to read at least 1 new release a month. I have 2 new releases lined up for. I have 1 new release lined up for the next. Actually, no. I have 2 new releases lined up for February. So I would really like to read 1 a month. I haven't got 1 lined up this month. But like I said, next month I have 2. So I have Trials of Empire by Richard Swan and Empire of the Damned by Jay Kristoff. Although that does kind of hinge on whether I enjoy Empire of the Vampire, which I'm reading next month as well. So we'll see. I also want to read The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett, and The Silver Blood Promise by James. I feel terrible, but I can't remember your name. Andrew talked about this in our interview and said that he was really excited. He's going to read that soon. Well, I'll be waiting for the official release because I didn't get an arc of it or anything like that. But I would really like to read that one. It's got like Locke Lamora vibes, and I'm interested in that. Even though I've not finished reading Locke Lamora, I did start it in my phase of starting all the books. So yeah, more 2024 releases. I want to read 12 across the year if I can. That can be difficult sometimes because, like, for example, I noted in March the new Sun Eater book is coming out, but I'm only going to have read 2 Sun Eater books by that time, and it's book 6. So we'll try and see what we can do. There's also going to be 2 releases that I'm definitely going to be reading this year, which is Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson and Empire and Dust by Ryan Cahill. So I know I've got those 2 locked in, and I've got 2 locked in at the beginning of the year. So yeah, I think this is the one that I'm least confident in completing, but it's also the one that is the easiest if I pay attention to things like new release wrap-ups. I will also be counting novellas. So I know that Bradley P. Bowyer is doing a Dragons of Deepwood Fen novella. Hopefully we're going to have a video interview after I've read the novella, so because he's heads down on writing it at the moment, but hopefully we'll be able to do an interview, and that'll be fun. So would definitely recommend definitely recommend. Yeah, well, I would recommend Dragons of Deepwood Fen, but also I really want to read these 2024 releases. Next up is my final goal, and this is the only channel related goal. So I don't really have any growth related channel goals. The channel has honestly grown beyond my wildest expectations. So I'll give you a peek behind the curtain. I was expecting to maybe hit 100 subscribers by like the end of 2023, maybe. And I was willing to be like, right, it was kind of my 6-month goal. So I've been doing Booktube for almost 5 months now. And my 6-month goal was 100 subscribers, basically. And then I thought maybe by the end of 2024, I could hit 200 or 250. So we're at 271 already. And when I hit 100, I hit 100 in like October, like end of October, I think. And I had in the back of my mind, I was like, well, maybe it's taken me a few months to get here, but maybe I can hit 300 by my birthday in May. And honestly, I think we'll hit 300 next week or the week after at the latest. Obviously, the channel growth could slow down, but I am noticing that I'm getting more and more views every video, and that things that I would say are videos that are more for people who are interested in the channel and less for like the wider stuff like reviews. So for example, I feel like a review is always going to get a decent amount of views because people are going to either want to know whether they should read the book or whether you agree with them when they finish reading the book. But I'm noticing that my wrap-ups and recap videos that I put up on Fridays are slowly climbing up in the numbers. And honestly, I don't know why you would watch one of those videos if you're not interested in me and the things that I read and things that I'm going to do. So, yeah. No channel growth goals because the channel is growing so fast and so out of my, so above my expectations that it feels silly to make any goals. If we were going to, you know what, we'll make a goal. We'll make a channel goal, which is not a serious or real channel goal. But I would like to see if we could get to 1,000 subscribers in 2024. That's a very high number. That's a very big goal. And that is like, even if I look at, so if I look at the graph of where my subscribers are going, what's happening is that every month I'm gaining more subscribers than I gained the previous month. Um, December was I did very well in December. I don't imagine I will do as well in January. But if I look at the stats, month for month, it's growing, and often by like 50 to 100% per month. If I follow that curve, I will hit 1,000 this year. However, I think that one of the big things that small channels have is that people look at a channel with under 1,000 subscribers and go like, "Oh, I'll subscribe to them and check them out." Whereas if I say I didn't subscribe, for example, to Mike's book reviews, I didn't subscribe for like 4 or 5 months. I just watched his stuff because I was like, "Who doesn't need my subscribe?" And I don't desperately need to be told when he's put a video out because I just go and look at his channel when I'm sitting down to watch some YouTube. So yeah, I think that 1,000 subscribers is a very, very difficult goal. I've got a couple of friends who have YouTube channels, right, who have Booktube channels, and their channels are much better than mine, and they haven't hit 1,000 yet. So we'll see. That would be my like completely out of the realms wildest goal. There probably maybe 500 by my birthday would be really cool. But if growth stays the same as it is, I will hit 500 by my birthday. Like I said, I will also hit 1,000 before the end of the year if the growth stays as it is. That's unlikely, but it would be lovely if it would happen. So I've just lengthened this video way beyond my original idea and spent like 5 minutes talking about Booktube. So sorry about that. The last goal that I have for 2024 is one that I've stolen from Murphy Napier, which is that I would like to be a better reviewer. So when I do my reviews, basically what I usually do is sit down either directly after I finish a book, with like half an hour break, to kind of absorb it and think, or I will come back to the book like the next day, so that I can film in daylight. Now, what I want to do for this year, starting with Either World, which is the first review I've done this for, which is I'm recording straight after this. I would like to write notes about the book as I read it, and I would like to talk about books in a more structured way. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about the world, which will also include the magic or the technology, depending on the genre. If it's like a mystery or thriller or something, and there is no world building or very light world building because it's our world, I'll still talk about the creation of the town, for example, it's set in or whatever. I want to also talk about characters. I'm going to be talking about story, and then I'm going to give pros and cons. So that's how my structure of my videos is going to go from now on. So we're going to go world, tech and magic, characters, story, and pros and cons. So all my videos are going to be like that. They're all still going to be spoiler free, my reviews, unless there are specific spoilers that I really want to discuss, which is what happened with Curse of the Mistwraith, and I put up a little spoiler warning. I'm hoping to do also, this isn't a goal, but I'm hoping to do spoiler discussions with other booktubers for as many books as I can. You saw my video with Andrew, which went up yesterday. That was more of an interview, but I am hoping that going on, if I'm ever reading a book that another booktuber is reading around the same time that I'm friends with, I'll be reaching out to them and asking them if they want to come on the channel. Hopefully, Ross and Laura from Hardy's Books are going to come on the channel and talk about Empire of Silence, if we can book in a time to talk about that. Empire of Silence by Christopher Rocchio that I'm currently reading. The funny thing is going to be that Ross, Laura, and I will all have read the same physical paperback because Ross has sent me their copy when my copy got damaged. I bought a copy from Amazon that was damaged and was complaining about how every book I buy from Amazon is damaged. And Ross was like, "I'll send you our copy because we're gonna we replaced it with a hardcover." So we'll actually have read all the same, which is quite funny. So that is those are all my goals for the year. So those are my 5 reading and channel goals, with a bonus channel growth goal that, like I said, is really living in a dream world. But if there's no time you can dream about a better world than January, when is that time? So if you have any sci-fi books to recommend me, or any indie books that have flown under the radar, let's say, ideally those books would be on Kindle Unlimited, and those books would be like a smallish number of ratings on Goodreads, so that I could see that not many people are checking these books out. That would be ideal. I think Hybrid Helix was really good for that, because there's very few reviews on Booktube that I could see of the book. And while there are a lot of reviews on Thingy, a lot of reviews on Goodreads, it's nice to kind of be the person talking about the thing, if that makes sense. Anyway, so if you have sci-fi standalones, ideally, or like I said, duologies, trilogies that are like fun and fast-paced. Also, if you have fantasy self-pub recommendations, sci-fi self-pub recommendations, new release recommendations for this year, especially ones where it's the beginning of a new series, like Dragons of Deepwood Fen, absolutely happy to start new series, no problem with that. So please do leave those in the comments. When you're going down to the comments to leave that, why don't you click the like button? You can also click the subscribe button. Doing both of those tells YouTube that you love my channel, and honestly, that's one of the best things that happens to me every day is when I get new subscribers. So thanks so much for watching this video, and I will speak to you tomorrow with my Eye of the World review. I'm patting the book. My Eye of the World review. Goodbye.